The topic of the panel discussion is developing new models for supply chain that will help you get closer to your customers. And now I'd be inviting all our panelists for this session. Let's welcome Mr. Amrendra Singh, Logistics Operations Lead, Mondelez India Foods Private Limited. Now let's welcome Mr. Tushar Chaudhary, Head Supply Chain, Eggoz. Ms. Rakhi is here and I would like her to join us in this session. Let's welcome Ms. Rakhi Nagpal, Production Planning Manager, India and Bangladesh, PUMA Group. Welcome. Let's welcome Mr. Sanchit Bhatnagar, DG MSCM, Godrej Consumer Products Limited. Why none of you are clapping as I'm welcoming all our panelists here? Please, I would really appreciate that. Yeah, please, thank you. Now let's welcome Mr. Philip Antony, Head Supply Chain, Baskin Robbins, India. And last but not the least, okay, we have two more. Mr. Sahil, Saini, Head India Business, Pando. And Mr. Atul, Endlay, AVP, TCI Supply Chain Solutions.
Hello.
Okay, as we have our moderator and all our panelists on stage, it's time for us to kickstart this one. Okay, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much and welcome to everyone. Before we start, before we dive into our panel discussion, let's start with some illuminating insights from the world of supply chain. In today's hyper-connected global marketplace, supply chain have taken center stage like never before. As of 2022, the global supply chain market is projected to grow at a remarkable CAGR of 10.9% from 2023 to 2030. Yeah? These numbers underscore the magnitude and significance of supply chain in our economies. In a recent survey, over 80% of supply chain executives have identified customer centricity as top priority. This shift reflects a growing recognition that to succeed in today's competitive landscape, businesses must get closer to their customers in every possible way. Furthermore, there is another survey which I refer to. The adoption of digital technologies is accelerating. According to a Gartner survey, over 60% of respondents see technology as source of competitive advantage. Companies have significantly invested in digitizing their supply chain operations over the past 1 year itself. All these states, or all these statistics provides a compelling background to our discussion today, and our panelists, experts in their respective fields, will shed lights on how they navigate this ever-changing landscape to create supply chain models that not only meets but exceed the customer demand and customer needs and customer expectations. So without further ado, let's dive into our panel discussion. Yeah. So before I start, we have discussed a lot of topics, a lot of things related to customer centricity, but we thought of starting from the foundation of the supply chain. And the very first question is related to S&OP process and customer needs. And I would like to direct my very first question to Mr. Sanchit. And Sanchit has a very wealth of experience. He is actually looking after the Godrej consumers. And my very first question to you, Sanchit, is how can the S&OP process be effectively leveraged as an enabler to fulfill customer needs? And what examples can you share from your industry? That's my first question to you, Sanchit.
Thanks, Ronit, and a very good afternoon to all of you. So, S&OP process, as I perceive, is a bridge between customer satisfaction and the entire organization's process, right? So, S&OP process typically enables any organization to fulfill customer demands in the most optimal way. And when we talk about S&OP, I think the first thing that we talk about is demand forecasting, which happens to be the engine of any supply chain, because if you forecast it correct, all your back-end processes will be streamlined, or rather it will be easier to streamline or optimize the back-end processes. And the other side is that if you don't forecast well, all your back-end processes will be difficult to optimize the processes, right? So when we talk about demand forecasting, so one thing which is very important is the co-ownership of multiple stakeholders. So whenever we are preparing a demand forecast or a demand plan for any organization or any product, then there are multiple stakeholders that are involved. So be it supply planning, supply chain, marketing, sales, trade marketing, and a lot of other stakeholders. And I have seen that in multiple organizations, demand planning is a part of either supply chain, sales, trade marketing, and there are different structures, organization structures within the companies. Right? For us, it is a part of supply chain. Earlier, it used to be a part of trade marketing. But I think the most important aspect is that every key stakeholder has to own what is going as a demand plan. For example, for GCPL, we have a culture that anything which is beyond 1 or 2% achievement at a month level and below 98% achievement at a month level against the forecast is questioned, debated, and there is a proper reporting of the root cause analysis for such errors, right? And which goes as a feedback loop in the next month's forecast. So that is one thing which is very important, that everyone has to co-own each and every process. Second thing is, which I believe is backbone of the entire demand forecasting process, is a very robust analytic tools to generate the baseline forecast and to simulate that if you change any demand lever, maybe pricing, grammage, promos, relative pricing index with respect to your competitors, if anything is changing, you need to know that what can be a possible impact on the demand or the volume growth, right? So that is one area where we have worked a lot, and now we have simulation. So probably we have that sort of granularity that if I increase my promos from 5% to 8% on Amazon, then what sort of changes I can expect in the optics on Amazon. And that is very important for any organization to have that sort of data, and then only you can plug in the right numbers. And another aspect of demand forecasting, I would say, we need to avoid biases, right? Because in the entire process, there are a lot of stakeholders. So if you talk to a brand manager, he'll always be bullish on numbers. If you went to a sales guy, he'll always be bearish on numbers. And there are all sort of biases. And I personally believe there is no way you can completely eliminate all these biases. These will exist, right? The only way you can probably optimize them is by measuring them. So one another initiative that we are doing at GCPL is, so when we have a baseline forecast, then there are a lot of stakeholders who are coming and participating. So from sales, trade marketing, finance, analytics, a lot of stakeholders are there and a lot of feedbacks come through. So we are trying to create a version at every level. So whatever the feedback ASM has given, divisional head has given, sales head has given, marketing head has given, and we are trying to evaluate who is adding what value to the forecast. Right, the baseline plus sales forecast accuracy is say 70%, baseline plus marketing feedback accuracy is say 80%, right? And we want to give that feedback to all the stakeholders that you are adding value to our demand planning, you are not adding value to our demand planning. And we want to be very crystal clear that this is the feedback that we want to take, this is the feedback that we don't want to take. This is how we can really optimize the biases, give feedback to the stakeholders. And the last bit I'll conclude saying that demand forecasting is one thing. Then demand shaping is other thing when you plug in all the demand levers, etc. Third thing which is very important for the entire SNOP is that how frequently you are communicating the changes in the demand plan to your supply planning manufacturing team. Right? That becomes very important for team to react to changing customer demands, and that we do it at a 10-day bucket. So every 10 day we send a revised plan if we see any changes. Yeah, I think that's it from my end, Ronit, and thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good example. When you are not only talking about forecasting, you are also talking about shaping it. You are also talking about putting a timeline to it. But these all are general terms, but what the real example that Sanchit has shared, I believe Rakhi would also have something to share in and around about the S&OP process and the customer needs. Rakhi, your views please on this.
Thank you, Sanchit. I hope I'm audible to everyone. It's okay, right. Thank you very much. A very good afternoon. I actually very much agree with Sanchit because more or less the things which I would want to add about the demand planning, he has already captured it. But couple of things which I would like to add in this further communication is about the first analytics. Yes, we are talking about demand planning, everything has to be planned, then we can execute it and we can actually foresee some kind of output, the business outputs. But when we talk about SNOP, yes, it's very important that what kind of data we are giving, how accurate it is, and what kind of analyzation is required, because the entire decision making is based on some analytics. So he also spoke about the tools. So yes, currently we are working, everybody is working on the new tools called BI or something like Tableau. These kind of tools are really helpful, would be, I'm sure, in future, to provide a more accuracy in terms of data, so that the right decisions can be taken. And second thing, I also appreciate about this word called as planning. Planning, more or less, if we look at it from the broader perspective, it looks like that a person who talks about planning actually doesn't work, frankly. But he is the actual backbone of any business organization, because I personally feel planning is a person who plans, a planner, is something like, who coordinates with all kind of stakeholders, whether it's sales, with operations, manufacturing, it's anything. And apart from that, not only he plans, he generates the reports also to provide certain kind of information. So SNOP is definitely a backbone of any business, but how accurate it is, how presentful it is, I think that's really plays a huge role to provide a better picture, I would say.
Yeah. That's very good example, because planning is the backbone of entire supply chain. If you don't do the better planning, you can't execute further. So that's very good example, Rakhi.
Thank you, Sanchit.
This examples, brings me to my very next question, which is, we have S&OP process, we have done the planning, but how about the customer segmentation for service optimization? How about your customer-centric teams? So for that, I would like to invite in my next question, Mr. Amrendra Singh. Amrendra is having a very good experience, and he's been doing well for the last more than a decade now in Mondelez. And after that, I would request Philip to also add into this question. So my question is to you, both of you, maybe Amrendra, you can start first. Sure. So the question is, discussing about importance of customer segmentation in achieving customer centricity, and how it can be used to optimize service delivery, promote innovations, and gain customer buy-in. And also, just to, also we want to know about the people in the supply chains and how you are going to link it into customer centricity and the teams. All yours.
Yeah. So I think it's important to understand that one size fits all service model doesn't go hand in hand, and we need to have a different fulfillment model for a different kind of thing. And it's kind of started when modern trade came in the year 2000s, when India modern trade came in. Then people started looking differently in terms of how do we service differently to different kind of customers. So when we look at right now, if I'm talking about Mondelez point of view, when we look at the customer segmentation, it's majorly for the general trade part. It's basically what kind of revenue you generate from that particular customer, and then you classify them into ABC classification, and then you service them in terms of your servicing frequency, the delivery frequency that you have, the kind of MOQs you'll have, and the kind of distances you'll have. So you'll have a kind of a model which runs like on a customer replenishment system. So that's one aspect of the general trade. The more important point is how do you manage the organized trade, which is your modern trade, omni, e-commerce setup, which is right now also in terms of growth is also growing at a faster pace. So for that, I think what is important is that you need to segment them on the basis of one is the kind of share of business that they have. Then second is the complexity to serve. The third part is your entire cost to serve piece. So if we look at, if we want to plot them on an axis, one axis could be your complexity and cost to serve. The second axis could be your entire share of business and the growth potential that they have. Now this growth potential can be derived from somewhere like what you have is what you were talking about, the kind of connect. If you have a top-to-top connect, if you have a joint business planning, then you'll come to understand that what is the kind of growth they are talking about, and that's something which you can plan in your customer segmentation strategy. That's how most of the organization also plan. Now we would want everybody to be on a high growth trajectory and a low cost servicing model, low complexity, but that's not the case. There are new emerging players, and with e-commerce coming in, there are a lot of players which are coming in now, and there is different, for marketplace you'll have to service differently, yeah. For other channels you'll have to service differently. But majorly what is there is that you would want the cost to serve to reduce, and your margins to improve. So your growth also has to go up, your margins to improve, and then the cost to serve has to come down. And the complexity in terms of servicing from logistics point of view, that somewhere has to come down. And that's where most of the organizations are right now working towards, is that how do you kind of bring the complexity and cost to serve down. Now where it could help is different fulfillment model. What we are doing, trying to solve for, is that can we have sellers in our DC for some of the smaller customers, where we can leverage kind of, because we usually what happens is that the lower the MOQ, the higher the cost to serve. So can you have some of the sellers in your DCs itself? Some kind of vendor flex model can work. That is one area to look at. Yeah. The other important aspect is the people's part. Unless and until you have a connect or a rapport with the team, and that's where one of the enablers is also that kind of connect you have from top to top to bottom, wherein the DC to DC connect is also happening. So that's where also a people-to-people connect helps in solving a lot of complexity-related issues. Yeah. The third aspect is entire order management piece, because with most of these retailers or organized trade, the entire order management piece itself is quite complex. Yeah. So the replenishment, when it's to be done, if it's on an EDI order, is much more easier to do than somebody sending in a order which is like all of a sudden it comes out of a blue, and then you'll have to service it, and the lead times for the organized trade is also quite low. So that's where I think the people-to-people connect is also important, and you need to establish a rhythm, a cadence, a process around that, wherein you are connecting with your customers to identify what are their problems, what are their pain areas. Maybe infrastructure is a pain area for them. How can you solve for a infrastructural problem at their end? So these are a kind of things which could help us in developing or partnering with the organizations or the retailers, which could get us to a low cost to serve or a low complexity that will enable a better sort of performance in terms of your service levels as well. And also in terms of growth potential also, you'll be able to grow with them. Yeah. So that's what I just wanted to talk about in terms of customer segmentation piece.
Yeah, thank you so much, because you touched upon the very key topics like customer visibility, engagement, and the feedback to the customers. And I'm sure that Philip is waiting to share his experience since last 2-3 minutes, and all yours, Philip.
See, it's kind of, he has covered everything, so I have nothing to left with. So, see, the customer centricity itself and the behavior of the customer, for me, I'm coming from an ice cream brand, it is kind of very dynamic. See, all supply chain professionals who has gathered here must be aware of the existing segmentation of customers, like your GT, MT, or your traditional business, whatever it is. So all those model, it is. I don't want to talk on that subject, because it is kind of changing which side it is going. The customer, how responsive your team, or how responsive you are with the customer needs, which decides your model, in fact. So that is other way around. Like you listen to your feedback, and how you are how much agile you are to change your the models according to the customer needs, and that is going to decide the segmentation, because the e-commerce channels or that particular segment was no more. It was not there before a couple of years, and it has been derived with the customer need. So now there are going to be so many further models which are definitely going to come for the supply chain professionals who are here. So it is basically the segmentation is defined by the customer feedback and how agile you are responding to it, and moreover how your front end is responding to it. So that is because he has touched upon the team. So that is also an important part in like deciding the model of segmentation.
Thank you, Philip. So, we spoke about the processes, we spoke about the customer segmentation, we spoke about our customer teams, but how about the balancing about the entire distribution model? So that's my next topic of question to my panelists, and I would like to start with somebody from the service side. And that question, he immediately picks up the mic. You could understand that Atul is ready for the answer. Yeah, so my question to you, Atul, is that, before I raise my question, I would like to, you to share some of your insights on developing a balanced, nimble, and cost-effective distribution model that not only encompasses the entire supply chain journey from manufacturer to user delivery while maintaining a customer-centric approach. All yours.
Fine, thank you very much. So I think I'm the only one representing the service side here.
You have Sahil also.
Yeah. So you see, in the entire gamut of, in the entire scheme of things of supply chain management, our role is of that of an executioner, of an enabler. So somebody's SNOP is opaque to us. Somebody's SNOP drills down to SOP for us. That's how we, make our processes to deliver that. And when you talk about CX, CX is a bifocal stuff for us. It is first towards the principal who gives us the business, towards giving him the best ROI for his investment, his inventory, the cost of servicing, and to the end customer, his customer, wherein delivering on time in full, delivering damage free, which keeps the image of the brand agile. Now, in the entire process of doing that, we have to come up with bespoke solutions. There's no, as we said, there's no one size fits for all kind of a thing. So we make solutions which encompasses the entire supply chain. I'll give an example. So take an example of a service to a customer, which encompasses his production logistics, his in-plant logistics, and his warehousing and last mile. So now your SNOP will have a different challenge for that customer when it comes to his supplier integration, when it comes to his warehousing, the kind of processes and SNOP and all these things inside that, and the last mile. So we create a solution which is a single window solution under one contract. So we do supplier integration, which is seamless pickup of parts from through a milk run from all over the country, do cross docking, do line haul. Everything happens through a bridge of IT, a strong IT support, where each part is visible end to end to the stakeholders. Then it goes to the plant. In plant, we do the just-in-time, just-in-sequence stuff. When the product is made, we do the warehousing and last mile distribution. In the last mile also, the multimodal thing is added as a flavor. Again, towing the line that everything has to be, under one roof. So that's a kind of, balancing act we do for a customer so that he need not engage into multi-level contracting. Everything is under one roof, whether it's B2B, B2C, or even D2C formats. Multimodal, something starts on a truck, it goes to a long distance on a rail and then door delivered. So that's a kind of, agile supply chain we continuously improve upon and, make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sure, after listening to having all the services under one room, Amrendra may have some, something to share from his end also. So over to you as well, Amrendra, for the same question. So the question is related to balancing the distribution model.
Yeah, so I think, again, from a distribution balancing point of view, network plays an important role. The kind of network you have right now, see, what we saw is that post-GST, most of the organizations, CPG or FMCG, kind of reduced it because we were having too many warehouses that were state-wise which are there. Now again, with the proliferation in the rural territories, what we are seeing is that the cost to serve, to service customers in the rural centers, as well as, let's say, customers in e-commerce, etc., should be a different fulfillment model. So I think if most of the organizations are already doing it, but then there needs to be a refresh of the network study that needs to be carried out. And that's going to be the core in terms of how do we fulfill in future. The second aspect to it is also to the fact is that in order to be much more nimble, what would be also required is that how do we kind of customize our products closer to the demand centers. Right now, you may be having something like what we have is a Copec location, which is, let's say, 4 or 5. In future, we might be able to do it in all our DCs itself, which could be enabling a lot of growth potential, because what we saw is that wherever we have moved into a Our one-stop fulfillment center, what we call is, because the DC is co-located with a customization center and also a seller. So those are kind of models which will emerge, and somewhere we'll have to start looking at the micro-fulfillment models also, wherein can we directly serve to the consumers rather than customers also from our DCs. So maybe some of the organizations have already started, and but I think in days to come, you will hear that when we talk about the segmented approach, you will hear that the direct to consumers have also started. Right now, because of the regulatory issues, you need to have some sellers in between. But in future, definitely there is going to be a potential wherein you will be able to directly serve consumers as well. And that could eliminate a good chunk of your margins which you are paying right now to the sellers in between. So in total, I think there are different fulfillment models that will emerge. The core of it would be how do we kind of establish a future network of the future, which would be important to lower the cost to serve, or at max kind of have the same cost to serve but improve the service levels. And obviously, it would imply that the growth potential is much more with our customers and lead to much more customer centricity.
You will have
I would like to add to that, Amrendra, it has already started, this kind of hybrid fulfillment centers have already started. Take a case in point for e-commerce. Now, the e-commerce today is a hybrid e-commerce. It's just a step below ONDC. ONDC is about to start. So the first e-com one was, the big two, big three players setting up the large fulfillment centers. Then it had drilled down to the vendor flex. Then COVID came in. Then every brand started its own .com. Today's model is a hybrid of vendor flex, .com and D2C, as you rightly mentioned. So we have already done that, and many of us in the industry has already done that. So there are fulfillment centers which are acting as a node. Now, a node in e-commerce, you have to understand, is that is something at a pin code level wherein you can deliver the material from and take the returns in. Now, when such a node gets created, it's not only the platforms, the own .coms, but new age brands who do not have a network, who do not have a backbone, who are just coming up with a brand which is going well with the people, they need a backbone. And we have set up such fulfillment centers wherein we are doing the B2B, the B2C, and the D2C model also. So direct to home deliveries is also which is happening now. So that's already there.
Yeah, it's true, it's true. A lot of 3PL organizations have already started doing it, but from the manufacturing side also, there are a lot of changes which has happened, because it's examples of the pre-COVID, post-COVID. A lot of companies have thought of looking into near-shoring, off-shoring, and a lot of organizations have actually brought their co-packer or co-manufacturer of their raw materials near to the manufacturing plant in order to produce on more faster mode. You have something to add, Rakhi? Yeah,
I wanted to say, because of one of the reason I think we need to add is reverse logistics.
Yes.
So yes, this is one of the major, most big component right now nowadays. So what is happening, in spite of that, delivering the goods through last mile, I think 61% ratio is there when we are talking about the reverse logistics, and people are talking about it that they don't want it, and how the manufacturing excellence, manufacturing operations, apart from the retail sector, how does it operate? So yes, we need to have a separate setup altogether for the e-commerce business.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I will not, let Tushar to sit for a longer time without speaking something. So my next question to Tushar itself. So our next topic is focusing on agile supply chain for product launches. And my question to you, Tushar, is that in the context of product launches, what strategies and tactics you have most effective in creating an agile and speedy supply chain that ensures new product reaches customers on time across the different markets?
Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. That's something that's close to my heart, and I'll also quote with some examples of how things did not work out. So what I've learned from my experience across multiple NPDs, new product development and launches that we have done, I'll try to summarize into 3 points. So I believe the first and the most important point is to have an open communication across the teams. What normally happens is that the sales and marketing team comes up with a plan that this is a product that we want to launch and this is what is needed to be done. It's distilled down to the other teams and then they start working on a plan. and then something changes at the top and that communication doesn't flow down. And then two different teams are working on two different models altogether, and when they sync back and then they realize that there's a gap. So the first point that I think there's, one thing that really derails the entire new product development phase is there's a lack of communication between teams. The second is having a proper a project charter around it, which is basically where we have clarity on what the customer wants, what the new product development team is doing to deliver it, and what are the constraints in delivery. I'll also come back around to that just to illustrate how there was some failures that I'd seen. And the third and final point is around the effective delivery of the product to the customer and to ensure that it is delivered at all the locations at the right time. And there's no lag between different distribution points and distribution centers. And that's the third point I think that really needs to be noted. So I'll just jump back right into the problems that we face. So taking a case from Del Monte, wherein one of our customers came and said that they want to develop a new mayonnaise that needs to be brought to the market. Our sales team gave them a sample and said that they want to pitch a good product, so they gave multiple samples and said this is something that they should trial, and then they should come back with what needs to be, what is the product that they're liking. Eventually, the product that they liked had an ingredient which had a lead time of 3 months. The timeline to deliver to the customer, to the market, was 1.5 months. So the customer liked it, we were negotiating on the costing, and then eventually the costing came through. The team realized we couldn't deliver. So this was a problem that we realized, and then we brought in a check gate mechanism, wherein everything that was going out as a sample, as a product, we checked, we ensured that whatever is going from the supply chain team as a probable product that comes out needs to be checked. The second case I would take is in terms of the change in configuration of the product. So this is a case I would take from the times that we were doing Dettol hand sanitizer. So the sales team came out and then said when there was a dip of volumes happening, when the COVID wave was rescinding, so they wanted to bring in new products which had a moisturizing capability, and they said that this has a new customer, this adds a new value to the customer, and this will probably bring in the volumes. And then there are global teams who come and give inputs on the products, that these are the kind of long-term studies we need to do to ensure that the product is capable to endure the entire shelf life. And then this discussion was happening in an absolutely separate discussion channel. And then what was happening, we were sourcing products, we were sourcing packaging material, we were sourcing printed packaging material to ensure that we'll send this product. And eventually, we had printed a sufficient quantity, a sizable quantity of material with ingredient details, which eventually was not a part of the final list of ingredients that would be there. So just trying to quote through examples, these are the problems that we have seen in terms of bringing a new product to the market. And then eventually, what I have seen is that once there's a good communication, there's a proper a project charter, there's a process of bringing a product to the market, and we have clear volumes and distribution timelines that are charted out. There would still be problems, there would still be issues that we would have to change the delivery dates, but once we solve for these and have, using even a basic tool like a project management tool, it is something that helps us.
That's a very good example related to the tools, because I know that Mondelez have a lot of different tools, a lot of different processes when it comes to the product launches. And quick 1 minute, your insights, Amrendra, on this.
I think from process point of view, already covered a bit. What we have is an idea to market process, which is for any kind of new launches. So the process is, and again, he talked about communication. I think collaboration is the key. Where a lot of stakeholders are involved in the entire process. So right from RDQ to engineering to your manufacturing to supply chain, and supply chain obviously kind of has the anchors the process, but then obviously marketing is the owner of the process, because that they have the insights team and they understand that what is that needs to be launched. So collaboration is the key. One part is there. The second part is obviously what you will want is that, and there I think demand sensing would play a part, and demand planning plays a key important role. Is that whenever a new product is being launched, what kind of cannibalization it will see, what are the kind of things that you can launch, and because if it's like a beyond the core product, which is like a completely new product, like if you've not ventured into, let's say, cakes. We launched cakes last year. Cakes was completely a new product, which was not there. So you do not have a kind of benchmark for that, but you would want to establish something around that. That's where consumer insights as well as the marketing as well as some of the knowledge comes in. Then demand team also needs to put in their viewpoint in terms of some of the products which can be cannibalized. So let's say a variant or a flavor comes in, then the demand planning process kicks in. The third part is obviously what he didn't touch about is the entire regulatory process.
Yes.
Because any new product launch would also entail that you will require a lot of changes, be it from packaging point of view, be it sourcing the ingredient point of view. So the specification, etc., especially in foods, because something goes wrong over there, the entire project fails. Yep. So from regulatory and legal point of view is also there are certain guardrails that needs to be there, and we need to ensure that is there. Then entire, I touched upon in terms of fulfillment network. I think network from any new launch is also important, because if you are creating a new product and you're going to source a machine, let's say from Europe, versus sourcing it indigenously from India, then obviously the lead time from terms of launches would be different.
Yes.
So sourcing, making also the network would play its part. If you feel that the product you are going to launch is going to do well in South, and you are making somewhere in North, in Baddi, etc., then obviously you will have a higher lead time, and that would mean that you're losing out on time in terms of servicing. And then the last bit is entirely on the distribution cost, etc. Also, it's going to play a part.
Yeah, that's true.
No, just to add to that also, so while in some cases where it's completely new, and you definitely need a lot of capex involvement to sort of even and do a lot of research before starting off. I think these days the balance of very focused and niche test market, you can segment a same product with multiple packages within, not forget at a state, but even at a city level, and support that with supply chain across. There are multiple co-packers available to support that fulfillment as well, along with the manufacturing. I think that really is helping out the agility part of it. And then, there are teams who are parallelly, while there is product launches and, understanding the behavior of buying of the different types of product you've just launched, they are mapping the overall customer profiles to different cities and then sort of replicate that to ensure repeatability and, be able to focus much better in those areas.
Yeah, that's true. So,
and you asked about the tools, etc. What are there?
Yeah,
so I think from the visibility point of view, because there are critical process paths in the entire process, you need a tool wherein you have the complete visibility as to what stage gate of the entire launch process the product is in, and how is it going right now from ideation to, let's say, going into the market or available to market point of view. So
yeah, that's a launch tracking tool you always require to track your product launches, meeting the timelines or not. You also touched upon the demand driven planning. So that brings to my very next question to Rakhi once again. It's related to IBP for demand driven planning. So my question and my ask to you, Rakhi, is that could you elaborate on how integrated business planning serves as a key enabler for demand-driven strategic and tactical end-to-end planning to meet customer demands?
Thank you for raising this question. This is such a very important question for me to answer, trust me. As we already talked about in the first question, I believe that demand planning is the backbone, I personally says. Now, how beautifully you do it, how important it is, it just depends. The very important part is, I think the important component behind it is the transparent communication, the follow-ups. The follow-ups with a lot of stakeholders, including from the sales, from warehousing, to manufacturers, to retailers, and so on. And it's just not only that you have a paper in hand and you're just making some plans. It's always talk about how connected you are to the people so that you can convey the right message to the team that what kind of product is required by when and why it needs to be delivered. Right now, we're in a situation where we are in a competitive market. Every second day, we need to launch certain new products. We cannot afford any kind of delay. And apart from that, e-commerce business is rising up. And we are in a situation, I think all the industries, not only I'm talking about retail, I think all the industries in a situation wherein we need to shortcut the lead timings. And once we talk about the lead timings, I'll give you the example of a footwear industry. For our open footwear like flip-flops and sandals, we have the normal lead time of 90 days. And if I talk about the shoes, then we have a time of 120 days. But currently in the market scenario, if I talk about it, then we need to reduce it to almost 30 days to 45 days, including, I'm talking about purchase of raw material, then production, and finally ship out the goods to the end customer. So in this scenario, how planning is the base then which you eventually execute the whole things and you deliver the goods. Because if I talk about my experience, I can only understand two key parameters which a retail industry is looking for it. One is the on-time delivery of the goods, and that is the second, quality of the product. So to meet these only two KPIs, yes, planning is something which needs to be done thoroughly, keeping all tools in mind, keeping all kind of communications in their heads on the top of the numbers. And that's how you can summarize it and give a full-fledged planning parts.
Yeah. You have a very good example, that the planning tool will help you, or the integrated business planning is helping you to reduce down 50% from your timeline. So assume about 90 days of the timeline is getting down to 45 days with the better planning view and observations. For the same question, I would like to ask Sanchit to add on his views because he comes from the Godrej consumers. I believe you also have some of the other best examples.
Thanks, Ronit, for that. So IBP, anyone in the audience or in the panel who is a part of large-scale organization and who don't have IBP, I think would definitely realize the importance of having it in place. So what IBP typically does is that it orchestrates and brings everyone on the same platform and aligns every department with the long-term strategic goals of the organization. So in most of the organizations that I have seen working without IBP, so a lot of departments are working in silos. And there are a lot of KPIs that each department holds which do not align with the long-term strategic goals of the organization. And this is one thing which can be avoided, and IBP will play a crucial role there. Second thing is the seamless flow of information. I think for any value chain, supply chain, I think it's extremely important that information flow has to be seamless. And once IBP in place, that definitely is one big advantage of having such a tool in place, that every stakeholder who has a little bit of information which might be very critical for operations, manufacturing, logistics, flows in the system across, and the transparency comes in. Right? So I would like to quote one example. So I represent Godrej Consumers, and we are one of the largest household insecticide companies in India. Right? So we have a household insecticide portfolio under the brand name of Goodnight. And when we do demand planning or demand sensing rather for HI, so it's very much dependent on the rainfall, precipitation, humidity, mosquito breeding, and if there is any sort of outbreaks like a dengue outbreak in any state or a malaria outbreak in any state, the demand shoots up like anything. And all these scenarios are very anecdotal, and you cannot really capture them in the monthly forecasting, right? So information flow is very critical for us, and in these scenarios, wherever there are dengue outbreaks, etc., a lot of brands who are our competitors or us lose out on market share, lose out on shelf presence, and also there are consumers who are suffering because these products are not available in the market. And we have seen scenarios in certain states where none of our competitors, neither us, were available because of a huge dengue outbreak. So consumers are suffering, they don't have products to buy, right? And which could actually save their families from a lot of diseases. So it's not only from the business side, but also from the consumer side that you want to be really available. And to cater to this scenario, I think IBP plays a very pivotal role. If you have a tool which can really capture information from ground team, which can actually capture some Google trends of some searches on Google, which can actually capture say, off-takes of a company like a Big Basket at a city level, that this city is, because any sort of e-commerce or quick commerce is a leading indicator in terms of demand sensing. Because if off-takes have increased on Big Basket for a particular product, then you need to see that, why the off-takes have immediately increased in past 3-4 days. Is there a mosquito breeding happening? Is there a dengue outbreak in that city, etc.? And these sort of minute informations are very pivotal for the supply planning team to actually ramp up their production, right? And the people or the companies who are able to do that, gain in market shares, are able to serve consumers better. And I think that's a very important aspects of IBP. And other thing is also the risk mitigation part and scenario planning, I think, which is very important. So any sort of IBP that you are using will give you a scenario planning, and with increasing demand volatility, increasing supply complexity, it's very important for us to assess different scenarios. And post-COVID, I think we are much more vigilant and cognizant about risk mitigation and plan B. Yes. So a lot of scenario planning is something which I find really value adding in any IBP, and that can be done quite easily. Yeah, so on IBP, I think these are the points that I want to share. So thanks for
thank you so much, Sanchit, because this brings to me my last question, which is related to the partnership that we keep into the supply chain and connecting it with some of these other digital aspects. So I will come back to Philip once again, because he comes from the Baskin Robbins, and I would like to ask him one of my very next questions related to agile supply chain partnership with digital approach.
See, am I audible?
Yes.
So starting with the technology part, with a lighter note, Ronit, actually, see, if you ask the same question to ChatGPT, you might get a better answer. So we are in that era. So, so it is, and coming back to the model, see, it is all depends upon how much money after implementing, how much money you left with your pocket. So surely it is customer centric. But also it is about how the product is reaching at the right time to your customers, and whether the customer needs to buy this thing, or whether we want the customer to buy this. So the technology is helping in such a way that what the other panelists were mentioning about the demand forecasting, planning things together. So manually it is certain times it is very difficult to analyze what is a forecast or what is a model we need to stick to. So it is again very dynamic, because see, some celebrity must be getting married and putting a hashtag that I had this ice cream together. So you have the spike of your demand from the very next day. So which is not there anywhere, and like manually, if somebody is doing that, and any supply chain partner if doing it, it is very difficult for them to go to these minute details of it. So technology comes here as a critical role, and while we are selecting a partners whomsoever it is, so it is a major pointer for us to select them as our partner, because they are going to front end the customers ultimately. So it is.
Yeah. So talking about the partner, Sahil looking at me that why he's not asking me the partner related question. So I would ask Sahil to answer on the similar question, how the companies, or you have done a lot of implementation for a lot of your customers, if you can share some of the other insights.
Sure. So see, technology and agility have always been hand in hand. So to talk about, I think the major pillars that sort of support agility today is sort of, how well visibility is ingrained in your system, how integrated, all of the different processes are with each other, how closely you are able to, how fast you are able to act and react to it when there are systems to support that. And then finally, whether you are able to predict some of the things to be, agile to a level that you don't have to react, but you are preempting some of the actions in the market and the demands. So visibility, I think traditionally, obviously, there are two types of organizations we've seen who've been ahead in technology implementations, have a lot of point solutions and all, but now we are seeing businesses which are upcoming, launching, and they want to start with visibility. Visibility is not just related to, having at the top level knowledge of, what you are manufacturing, what your customers are ordering, how are you fulfilling it, but across every micro process of it, what sort of demands that are coming into, what sort of new demand trends you are seeing? What's the visibility into the manufacturing it in terms of how are you fulfilling the execution? How is every vendor associated with are sort of able to support that fulfillment as well? When we come to integration, now today, I happened to recently sort of purchase some furniture recently, and earlier there was time we used to go out to retail outlets to buy those furnitures out. Now today we are at a time where unassembled furniture is being delivered to your home. There are service people coming probably around the same time. So how exactly that ordering is happening? So in terms of integration, how well the CRM is able to pick up that this is the kind of demand we are looking forward to. How well the manufacturing team is able to react to that sort of predictions. Then post production, in terms of accessibility of the product, whether you are still in a traditional regional distribution model or there are new channels you've come up with, how well you are able to support quick commerce in the kind of industry you belong to. So the integrations across each of these functions is sort of what drives the agility. And when we come to sort of execution, see, to act, you need to have today data and what action would exactly sort of support the service levels that your customers are demanding these days. Now, in terms of whether it's demand supply planning or whether how fast you are able to procure a freight today to sort of fulfill the demand. There are new lanes adding on day out. There are new modes of transportation. Obviously, 3PLs are key in terms of adding. The penetration of 3PLs in India is sort of growing day by day, while they are the go-to-way methods in the West. Towards the east side, I think that's definitely the new trend we are seeing. And then, then how do you exactly plan for it in terms of the, dispatch of freight within the contracted environment? How well you are able to sort of execute and provide that visibility, not just to your internal stakeholders, but to the customers. Customers these days are very impatient. They don't want a black box that, boss, this is the time when I'm going to get delivery. They want visibility even to your manufacturing, that, boss, this is the time when my product is manufactured, when I've ordered to, it's sort of make to order, assuming the make to order industry. And then what time it will delivered, what time my service people are there. We are seeing actions to a level that, boss, if there is preemptive delays that people in the supply chain are foreseeing in a direct to consumer sort of an environment, they are ensuring that the service, which is there's slightly delta between the service and the sort of product delivered, they are ensuring that the service happens on the same day to sort of improve customer SLAs and all. So this integrated environment and technology is sort of what's supporting the agility these days, and that's how we come in.
Yes, thank you so much, Sahil. So we are just end of our time. I'll just take quickly 10 minutes, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, sorry. Yeah. So otherwise, I would have opened the floor for the question. So just a quick wrap that we spoke about the customer-centric teams, we spoke about the S&OP processes, agile supply chain, digital strategies, and also talked about a lot of related to suppliers. So you heard about my esteemed panelists, their insights, their learnings, their experiences, and their demand also. So if I would have another 1 minute, I would have opened it for the questions, but we are here, you can ask anytime, through the day, through the evening. And thank you so much for being such a lovely audience for us and listening to us. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Mr. Ronit, for being a lovely moderator. And everybody, yes, we have an amazing panel out here. I'm sure you are like very inquisitive about asking questions to all of them. We'll be having a 20-minute tea break, so they'll be out only. You can just go and ask them any questions you have. For now, thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And now I'd like to request you, sir, to please present the token of thanks to all our speakers in here. Thank you. Can we have a big and a loud round of applause for our moderator and all our panelists in here?
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
And everyone, I'll announce after the break that when and how we're doing the lucky draw. So yes, wait for it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. What's stopping us from clapping loud? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to request Mr. Sanchit to please present the token of thanks to our moderator, Mr. Ronit Verma. A round of applause for our moderator, please. This was indeed a fantastic panel discussion, and with this, we end this. And now I announce a 20-minute tea break. I'd like to request you all to kindly be back at your seats after 20 minutes, for we have an amazing panel discussion upcoming. And yes, as I said, I'll be announcing about how and when we'll be doing the lucky draw after the break. See you all here. Thanks.